Welcome to The Fight on Matrix Midwest with Randy Karraker and company.
Hi kids, welcome to the show. Happy Hump Day. Great to have you with us in The Fight. That's Andrew Rogers. I'm Randy Karraker, and we have a lot coming your way. As a matter of fact, another spring training of concern for the Cardinal offense. Yeah, it could be rough. We're also going to talk a little bit about some of the delusion going on in Dallas, and our buddy Joey Vitale is going to join us. He'll join us every Wednesday on The Fight. Looking forward to that. A lot to talk about. Even though we don't have any Blues, we don't have any Cardinals games at the moment, a lot to talk about today.
Definitely, and I think it all starts with spring training, Randy, and it comes on the heels of pitchers and catchers reporting yesterday. And we wanted to transition a little bit to what we were going to see from position players this year and who could possibly fill the void of if Nolan Gorman and Walker don't pan out, what that looks like.
That's the concern. Nolan Gorman had a bad year last year. Jordan Walker had a bad year last year. So if those guys don't wind up being what the Cardinals expect them to be, and they expect Nolan Gorman to return to that 27 home run form of 2 years ago. They expect Jordan Walker to be the guy that they thought he was going to be when they got him. But if those guys don't work out, who are some of the people that have a chance to lift this offense? And one of the people that really has a chance to make a mark this year is if he plays 120, 130 games, is Lars Nootbaar. Last year, his peripheral numbers were terrific. He had a career-high 49.5% hard hit rate. That's pretty good when 49.5%, basically half the balls that you hit are hit hard. That's in the top 10% of major league hitters. He also made hard contact on 21.9% of his swing. So this is a guy that's hitting the ball hard. The problem is he's not in the lineup often enough. He's played in 117 games. That's his career high for Nootbaar. But if he can get into the game, how about this? That hard contact rate last year, third best in baseball behind only Juan Soto and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. So it seems like the numbers people are thinking, if Nootbaar can stay on the field, he's a guy that can be a big-time productive player.
It's good company to be in, but just because you hit the ball hard doesn't mean that you are one of those players. Remind yourselves of that, Cardinal fans, because you've seen a little bit of what Lars Nootbaar has been and what he probably will be going forward in his future. Nootbaar will never be a $750 million player. He may not even make 1 year's worth of salary that Juan Soto's about to make this year in his entire career. But he is a fun guy to root for, and if he can stay healthy, if he can play 130 games, then maybe, just maybe, you'll see a little more consistency in his game.
And a couple of years ago, when Pablo Lopez was available from the Marlins wanted Lars Nootbaar. Cardinals said no. When the Cardinals needed a new catcher and Sean Murphy was available from the A's wanted Lars Nootbaar, and the Cardinals said no. Everybody in baseball that the Cardinals have talked to about a trade still wants Lars Nootbaar. They like the fact that he doesn't strike out. They like the fact that he's a pretty good defender, and they like the fact that, as you mentioned, that he's a good guy in the room. He's got the entire package except for the fact that he doesn't have the most important ability, which, kids, is availability. Right. One other note, by the way, for those of us that are kind of old school and care about strikeouts and having too many, Lars Nootbaar had the lowest chase rate in baseball last year. He chased 16.9% of the time. Andrew McCutchen was second. Dylan Moore was third. So that's just another positive as far as I'm concerned. Having guys that don't strike out is really hard. One thing I've learned about baseball, I'm watching it for a long time, really hard to get hits if you don't hit the ball.
You know who doesn't strike out is the Cardinals' first-round pick from this year, J.J. Weatherhold. Mm-hmm. He is a player that doesn't strike out a lot, and those are the type of guys that you need in this lineup. Frankly, it's that Moneyball approach. This team needs people to get on base, and J.J. Weatherhold's one of those guys.
But in Moneyball, 3 true outcomes. It's home run, strikeout, walk. That to me is the essence of the problem in baseball. The Moneyball approach. I like the idea of going back to old school and having guys that can get their bat on the ball. And one of the guys that, if he does that, if he gets his bat on the ball, is Victor Scott II. With his speed, and by the way, he got on base to the tune of about 37% a couple of years ago in the minors. Struggled horribly last year in his first year in the majors. But if he gets on base, he's going to steal. Stole 94 bases a couple of years ago.
Yeah, he's fast. He can really stretch out plays too, and when he does reach base, he's one of those players that may turn a double into a triple just because of his sheer speed. I also love that we can go back on John Jay here for a moment and what he means to Victor Scott and his development. John Jay is one of the most consistent Cardinals center fielder hitters that we've seen, at least in the modern era. He was a 283 hitter, something like that, when he was a St. Louis Cardinal in his entire career. And he was also a good defender. He wasn't great by any means, but he was a good defender. He wouldn't make the flashy plays, but he would make the play. It's a great person to learn from at the age of where Siani and Scott are in their career.
And Victor Scott, if you aren't aware of it, 2 years ago, they give one Gold Glove to each position for all of minor league baseball. And Victor Scott II in the Cardinals system was the Gold Glove center field of all minor leaguers. So he can play defense, but you can always get better, and it's good to have a guy like John Jay helping him out. Another guy that can make a mark for the Cardinals if indeed Gorman and Walker don't work out is Alec Burleson, who was off to a great start last year. Before the break, 17 homers, an 814 OPS in his first 89 games. Kind of fell apart after the break, and that might be because he'd never played into September before. But Burleson looked for all the world like a guy last year that, if you could get him to play for a whole season, can be a 25 home run guy, be an 800 OPS guy, and not be an impact guy, but be a key part of a good lineup.
Well, and Burleson is in a good spot right now to where it's not all on him. The pressure really isn't on him to perform because he has so much behind, or at least rather the Cardinals have so much behind him depth-wise that they can use to interchange.
He can be a number 6 hitter, right?
He could be a number 6. He could just be a DH. He could be the first base. Whatever you want to play, put him on the field. Luken Baker's another guy that I think you'll see a little bit this year as well. He's that right-handed bat coming off the bench. Cardinals don't have a lot of right-handed power bats off the bench, and Luken Baker can be that guy. So because you have such interchangeable pieces, that pressure isn't on Burleson's shoulders.
Maybe the most intriguing Cardinal offensively is Mason Wynn. Had a 730 OPS, 62 extra base hits as the leadoff man last year as a rookie. Only had 16 stolen base attempts. For a guy that got on base as much as he didn't try to steal enough, and that's a problem of the management. That's an issue of Ollie Marmol and his staff. If you get Mason Wynn on base and get him to start running, you could have quite a weapon. And again, the Cardinals might be in a situation where they need to manufacture runs. Wynn can be a huge part of them doing that.
Well, Randy, speaking of pressure, I had a question for you because we know what Mason Wynn can offer in the field. He's got a great arm, he's got great range, he's very versatile, but at the plate, coming into this season, do you think Mason Wynn carries the most pressure to perform at the plate? No.
I think after what he did last year, I think he's on an upward trajectory. I would say if there's pressure on a guy, it's a guy like Victor Scott, who didn't even hit 200 last year. I think there's pressure on a guy like, we talked about Lars Nootbaar off the top. Sure, the peripheral numbers are there, but can he turn that into actual baseball production? And I think a guy like Gorman hit 27 home runs 2 years ago. Last year, hit 19. 2 years ago, his strikeout rate was about 31.5%. Last year, he struck out almost 38% of the time. I think there's pressure on Gorman to return to the form that he showed last year. I think Mason Wynn just needs to keep doing what he was doing.
Yeah, I think Cardinals fans put pressure on Mason Wynn to perform because when they look at this depth chart, they see the superstar Mason Wynn is. When you just look up and down on the list, you're like, this is our guy. Mason Wynn is now the pinnacle of what the Cardinals need to be. And so that pressure, I think, will actually carry over for Mason, and he will have to try to appease a lot of fans this year at the plate because it won't just be in the field going after Gold Gloves. It's going to be, we need to be competitive. The Cardinals need to stay competitive this season despite what we're hearing. And Mason Wynn may get the blunt or the brunt of that blow.
Despite what we're hearing, huh?
Well, I mean, yeah, because when you do the total reset, Cardinals fans still aren't going to be okay with, hey, we're going to finish 4th in the division. They don't want to hear that.
Well, but they aren't in charge. The Cardinals are in charge.
No, sure. But
right?
but the fans still are going to be the ones paying to get into the game and watching their team. And, like, this is just, you know the fan base better than anybody.
I think that
they can be ruthless.
I think that the Cardinals have not lied about this at all. they've told us that, hey, we aren't going to sign any free agents. They haven't signed any free agents. We're going to cut payroll. They have cut payroll. This is not a team that is trying to win. Now, is every individual player, is Ali Marmol trying to win? Yes. Is the front office going into the season planning on challenging the Cubs for the division or the Dodgers for the league? No, it's not realistic. This is a young team. Think of the Kansas City Royals over the years. Think of the Pittsburgh Pirates over the years. Think of the Cincinnati Reds over the years. That's what the Cardinals are in 2025.
Well,
and you just have to deal with it.
Well,
I mean, that's reality.
I think a lot of the players will not want to hear that. They're definitely trying to win
you know what?
there. That's why Wilson Contreras returned.
I'll tell you, the Royals and the Pirates and Reds didn't want to hear it either. And guess what's happened to them for 30 years? Right? Let's talk about your guy, J.J. Weatherholt, by the way.
Oh, I do love J.J. because he's one of those guys that have that short, compact swing that can really get to the baseball. And this is the guy that I like mostly to replace Gorman if it does not work out. Nolan Gorman, great player. And I'm not saying that we're just anticipating it not to work out. But Weatherholt, he's going to make people regret that they passed on him in Major League Baseball's last draft. He is a great hitter, a good defender. He can be moved across the infield, but overall, I just love his progression to the baseball, and he may not deliver overly excessive pop. He may not hit the ball over the fence 30 times a year, but he'll get doubles, and he'll make you pay on the base path.
Meanwhile, let's turn to hockey. The Four Nations tournament starts today, and yesterday, Canada coach John Cooper, the Lightning head coach, named Jordan Binnington as his starting goalie. What does it say that in the country that produces the most great players, they chose Binner as the guy? Cooper said, Jordan's been our guy. So there's a local perception that Jordan Binnington isn't that good. Does it change your perception that the coach for the team with the most talent in the Four Nations tournament has chosen Jordan Binnington as his goalie?
I think it should, and I know why you're asking me this is because I can be pretty critical of Jordan Binnington's play. I've told you before that he makes the hard ones look easy, and he makes the easy ones look hard. But in this sense, Binnington, he performs on the biggest stage. We saw that in 2019, and now that he can do it for his country, he's building his international legacy by doing so. He's a gamer. He is a fighter. He stays composed in the net. He's calm, cool, collected. Any sort of adjective that you can attach to him, he is that super goaltender when it comes to the big stage of the spotlight.
Yeah, when the best hockey-producing country has him as their goalie, there's a lot of teams that would love to have Jordan Binnington
and Aiden Hill,
for them.
Stanley Cup champion, behind him.
Yeah, so pretty good. Hey, you can watch Binner tonight as Team Canada and Sweden face off at 7 o'clock St. Louis time on TNT. Later in the show, you can help us build a parlay. Find a single bet you like on DraftKings and send it to us. Andrew will make a bet, I'll make a bet, and then you make a bet too. We'll put them all together and build a parlay. By the way, it doesn't cost you anything. Just send in a text. Text in 314-624-0414. And if you have any questions, any question that you want to ask us, you can do that. We'll answer them later in the show. Text in or email us at thefight@matrixmidwest.com. An exciting game for SLU last night. Isaiah Swope hitting a three-pointer at the buzzer to send the game against George Mason into overtime, but the Bills couldn't muster much offense in overtime and fell to the league's top team 76-74. Robbie Avila with 27 points. He got back on the beam. He says they need to take care of business in regulation, though.
You know, we buckled down, got a couple stops early, couldn't punish them in the beginning of the overtime, and then they started getting going in the end. They hit a couple shots, but it's shouldn't have gotten to that point. I think we got to be able to win games in those first 40.
Wasn't his fault though. Steph Lurie was fine last night with 27.
I love that you were able to add that in for me. No, the Billikens really could have used this one. George Mason, the best team in the Atlantic 10. This was one on your home floor that you just need to snag, and they were unable to do so. But you got to be proud of the effort the Billikens played in this game. They weren't even supposed to be competitive, let alone take this game to overtime. They had a chance to win it, and it just didn't work out. But the Billikens overall should be okay with this effort. It's one you can really build on.
And they're decimated. They had so many guys playing so many minutes last night. They were just gassed in overtime. All right, coming up here on The Fight, Aaron Rodgers is not going to be back with the Jets, but you'll be amazed at why he's not. That's coming up on Quick Hits next on The Fight. Juan Soto was guaranteed more money by the Mets this offseason than 22 Major League Baseball teams combined spent on their free agents. One of those 22 teams, of course, your St. Louis Cardinals. Now, Andrew, if you were the owner of the Cardinals or another team, would you dip into your personal fortune and lose money on your team so that you could buy more free agents?
I think that's one of the things most people don't understand that this front office needs to do. But yes, Randy, I would dig into my own pockets. You know what? Call me Dan Snyder, but the one that treats his employees right and isn't a sleazeball, because I love my team. I love my city. I want to put money into my organization to win World Series. So yes, if I have that much money, it's probably like only me spending like $300, right?
Yeah, $765 million. Here's the thing. The reason that these people are billionaires is because they don't get into endeavors that cause them to lose money and dip into their personal fortune. Now, Steve Cohen is a different animal. He's got billions and billions and billions of dollars, and he's a huge Mets fan. He's doing it out of an emotional response. Most owners have these teams as a business proposition. They aren't in it to dip into their personal fortune. So I think I would be inclined to fall on the side of treating it as a business, build a great product, but still not dip into my personal fortune so that I could pay a guy who might hit 213 for me and cause me all kinds of angst.
Can this be a social experiment? Can we try this with me? Can somebody give me that amount of money so that I can put it to good use
that's
like
the thing.
that?
None of these guys, well, some of them have been given money, but we aren't going to give. See, Bill DeWitt, he bought a bunch of Arby's. He bought a playing card company. He's got a big business that caused him to become a billionaire. He wasn't given that money. So that's why, whether you're a Bill DeWitt or whether you are a Guggenheim Group, and they're spending a lot, but they're making a lot. If you are one of the owners in Major League Baseball, you really aren't probably inclined, Bob Nutting in Pittsburgh, inclined to spend your own money so that you can pay a player. How many times do you think in business an employee gets paid out of the owner's pocket?
If you do a good job, like maybe there's a couple of dollars. It's like what the movie Pursuit of Happiness when he pulls money out of the wallet. Like here's your first paycheck, right? Yeah. I don't know if that's $750 million coming out. It may only be 28, but it happened, right?
The Athletic reported that the New York Jets presented Aaron Rodgers a pathway to stay with the team. The new coach, new general manager, had an avenue that included heading into the meeting. The Jets being undecided as to whether to go forward with Rodgers. But they were open to the possibility if he agreed to make adjustments. Among them, he would no longer be permitted to make outside media appearances during the season, including his regular paid appearance on the Pat McAfee Show. He would be required to do his job to attend all mandatory practices. Last year, of course, he missed 2 mandatory minicamp practices due to a previously scheduled vacation trip to Egypt. And obviously, he's not returning to the Jets, so he clearly wanted to have the control of making his own schedule so that he could go to Egypt or hop into the darkness if he needed to, or to show up on the Pat McAfee Show. I'll be interested to see if any team will accede to his demands or desires. I can't imagine, for example, the Steelers allowing him to do these things.
No, it's just an overall distraction, Randy. It doesn't make sense to have somebody like him at his age and where he's at in his career call the shots. If he was Patrick Mahomes, if he was Lamar Jackson, and this is what they wanted to do, and he's in the prime of his career, and he still looks like an absolute superstar, he's winning Super Bowls, then sure, right? I mean, maybe let the leash a little bit more loose. It can be a retractable leash if you're Patrick Mahomes. With Aaron Rodgers, it's a tight leash, and you need to run a tight ship in order to get the Jets back on track, and that's exactly what Aaron Glenn is doing.
Well, this is one of the things that happened with not Phillip Rivers, with Russell Wilson in Seattle. They gave him control of the organization. They gave him multiple parking spots. They gave him an office in the building. They let him have his own personal quarterback coach with the team. And that alienated the other players. That caused a lot of ruckus in Seattle. And I just don't think that for anybody, Patrick Mahomes included, that you can give them that level of control of the organization. With all the talk around Nolan Arenado, is he there? Is he going to show up? Is he not there? Is he not going to show up? And all the talk around trading Nolan Arenado, Are you getting tired, even though spring training hasn't officially started yet, are you getting tired of nothing happening?
I can see why people would be getting tired of nothing happening because they just want to know now. They want to just get to the point where it's like, okay, baseball's back. We know the position that the St. Louis Cardinals are in, and this is how we are going to proceed. You lose all the awkwardness. The players are, back in form, and they don't lose time to get adjusted to things. Maybe, just maybe, the MLB should think about a potential soft deadline, if you will. I don't want to give teams total control where the player has to decide right then and there, like, hey, we got to sign or else I may not have a contract. But put some incentives on the line for the players, whether it's guaranteed money, club opt-outs, performance investments, whatever it may be. A soft deadline could be nice for free agency.
Baseball used to have a deadline. If a player, and this was only for free agency, but if a player didn't sign with his old team by December 31st, he couldn't sign with any team until May 1st. He had to sit out. How about this? If you have not signed, I'm talking to you, Scott Boras and Alex Bregman, by the time spring training starts, by the first day of spring training, the first team's first spring training, you can't sign until May 1st. That would help the entire offseason for baseball players, and it would help the Cardinals because they're right now at the mercy of what Alex Bregman does. All right, NFL season is over. The 2025 head coach hiring cycle is now complete with the Saints hiring Kellen Moore. The biggest winners and losers, Andrew. How many last only 1 year, and what teams make the playoffs in year one? Let's take a look at the new coaches. Aaron Glenn with the Jets, Mike Vrabel with the Patriots, Ben Johnson of the Bears, Brian Schottenheimer of the Cowboys, Pete Carroll of the Raiders, Liam Cohen of the Jags, and Kellen Moore of the Saints. Biggest winners and biggest losers.
Well, I think at the top, Pete Carroll and Ben Johnson are the biggest winners for their respective teams. Pete Carroll, Super Bowl winning head coach, and you have Ben Johnson, who was one of the brightest offensive minds, taking over a really young but great and well set up Chicago Bears team. Biggest losers? Cowboys with Brian Schottenheimer, not a fan. This is just transitioning from last year to this year. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to go that route and say we're not going to change much. And then Liam Cohen, I'm not a Liam Cohen guy. I don't know about you. He kind of gives me like a cringe coach vibe. And if I'm a player, I'm not thinking that Duval stuff that he constantly is saying is my cup of tea. It's not for me.
That's fine. Their fan base yells Duval all the time. They're in Duval County, Florida. Last year at the Hall of Fame, when Tony Baselli went in, they yelled Duval. That's what they do. And
but he's trying too hard. Like, that's why, to me, it's cringy. He's just trying too hard.
Okay, the two biggest losers are Aaron Glenn, who should have gotten a better job than the train wreck Jets. And even if he would have gone to New Orleans, it would have been better. And I'm with you with Dallas, having an unknown. You have a coach who goes 12-5, 12-5, 12-5, then has a bad year, and then you hire a complete unknown. I think Jerry Jones and the Cowboys would have done better to hire more of a known. Patriots do very well to get Mike Vrabel, but I'm intrigued like you are with Pete Carroll going to the Raiders. And I think if I were going to pick a team to make the playoffs in year one, even though they don't have a quarterback at the moment, Pete Carroll is a turnaround expert.
I don't know.
And in that division, I know it'll be tough. I can see them sneaking into a wild card spot.
It depends on who's commanding that offense. That's
He'll
really
get
what
somebody.
it comes down to.
Yeah, it'll get Russell Wilson. So, and by the way, Liam Cohen, a big winner, because remember, he wouldn't go to the Jaguars unless they fired the general manager,
and
Trent Baalke.
He made it happen.
So he got immediately, walking in without ever having been a head coach, he got big time power within that organization.
I have a weird feeling he's not going to be great there.
So this is like an Adam Gase situation. And then Kellen Moore, the last guy. One of the problems with being hired after the Super Bowl is that most of the good assistant coaches are already taken. Kellen Moore will have difficulty building a great staff with the New Orleans Saints.
I mean, who knows? He could have been better in Dallas.
Yeah, that very well could have been. Speaking of Dallas, Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott talking about the NFC Championship game between division rivals Philadelphia and Washington said, watching the NFC Championship game and those teams that we battle against each and every year a couple of times, as I said, I feel confident that we've gotten the better of each of them each and every time. But just seeing such a dominating fashion, credit to them, it's our turn and it's on us. Dallas went 1-3 against Philly and Washington. They were outscored by Philadelphia this year, something like 73-16. And since their last Super Bowl, they're 5-13 and haven't been in an NFC Championship game, 5-13 in the playoffs. Is it indeed Dallas's time, like Dak says?
No. Absolutely not. I mean, will they be competitive this season, or should they be competitive if everybody stays healthy? Sure, because you have good pieces in place. CeeDee Lamb, one of the best top 3 receivers in the game. Dak Prescott can be a very good, serviceable quarterback that puts up 4,000 yards. You can build off of this run game in the draft, especially if you go out and get a guy like Ashton Genty. And then you have good defensive pieces. Micah Parsons is arguably the best in the game at his position. So there are potentials for that. You just have to have everything go right. And it's one of the hardest divisions for that to happen.
As long as Jerry Jones is alive and in charge, they aren't winning anything. So Cowboy fans, he's 82, so at least it's getting closer every day. All right, those are quick hits. Coming up, it's Wednesday, and our guest on Hump Days is going to be Blues broadcaster Joe Vitale. He's next with Andrew and Randy in the fight. All right, let's head to the Zoom line, and our friend Joe Vitale, Cardinal Blues analyst and broadcaster, joining us here on The Fight. I know you're a Cardinal fan, but your expertise is in hockey. How are you doing, Joey V?
Well, first and foremost, we should be honest. I'm not a huge Cardinal fan. I'm just going to come out of the gates right hot. But we certainly watch. I'm good for a hot dog and a beer, Randy. By the second inning, I'm ready to get out of there. But I love supporting the team, and I love that my kids love it, and that's all I'll say about that.
Great. Hey, let's start with this. The Four Nations tournament starting tonight. Canada taking on Sweden. Binner is going to be between the pipes. Colton Parayko playing for Canada. How do you like this rather than the All-Star game?
To me, this is like the next best thing. I look at this tournament. My early prediction, and right now they're just predictions, is that what is this going to be? It's certainly going to be better, I think, than the All-Star game. Is it the Olympics? Absolutely not. Again, this is just my prediction. Now, they could surprise us. You don't know. I mean, I'm talking about the overall intensity, the emotions of what type of tournament we're going to see. So for the fact that it's going to be, to me, more intense than an All-Star game, I'm excited about that. But the reality is it going to be the Olympics? I don't think so. But, I talked to Benny about this about 2 months ago, and I asked him about, what type of intensity does he think he's going to see? Is it going to be a little bit better than the All-Star game? And he just kind of looked at me with a smile, and he said, Joe, it's going to be intense. Like, these guys are going to be amped up and ready to go. There is something, I think, really special about putting the logo of your country on your crest, on your chest, and moving forward into a game with that. There's an extra sense of pride that, of course, doesn't come with an All-Star game. I'm excited to see the game tonight. I've always felt that whether it be a preseason game, the first game of the year, first playoff game, there's always like a moment in the game. You're always looking for like, who is going to grab the energy of the game? And I think it could be a big hit. I would love to see Sidney Crosby completely lay out, a defender or run a goalie. That to me, if you see that, all of a sudden, not just that game, the entire tournament just goes everything just gets ramped up, right? So I'm hoping to see that.
Joey, speaking of ramp-ups, now during the break, the Blues have been rumored to be sellers at the trade deadline. And if they are, I'm curious how you think you see that shaping their future.
Yeah, I mean, right now, rumors, schmumers, I don't know. I mean, this has been such a seesaw year for the Blues, and the inconsistencies, and certainly you look at the teams that have found success. I loved, hearing from Matthew Tkachuk after the Florida Panthers game, the other day, I think 2 games ago when they lost in the final 10 seconds. The thing about the best teams in the league, as you're looking at the Colorado Avalanche, some highlights right here, certainly the Florida Panthers. Avalanche won recently. The Panthers won recently. The Vegas Golden Knights won recently. But Matthew's comments, he spoke about the consistency of their game and the wave after wave approach of their game from everybody, right? I think that's what the Blues just still haven't found yet. They have really good spurts. They have really good months for certain players. You look at the month of December for Robert Thomas was just through the roof, right? Then January fell off. The Florida Panthers, they're successful because they come at you in waves. You've been to the ocean, you're sitting on the shore, you're drinking your coffee in the morning, and it's just whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. And when you play the Florida Panthers, it just doesn't stop. It's nature. The nature of the waves crashing is the nature of the Florida Panthers coming at you. It's 4 lines and they don't stop. And Matthew even said in his post-game remarks after they won that game, to Andy Strickland, he talked about how they weren't there yet. This is a team that's having a lot of success this year, but Matthew really felt that this team is not there. He said, we got ways to go here. We haven't found that consistency. We haven't found ways to be winning these late games, and we got to get there. He says, we're close, but we're not there yet. So the consistency and the never satisfied attitude is something that this Blues team is looking for. Is it something where you make a couple moves and you bring in a couple different, characters and personalities and people that can help the team? I certainly think that Doug Armstrong is working on that. But I also think that it is important to know that there is a core group of guys here that, to me, I'm still bullish about. I really am. I talk to these guys. I've been around them. They're young. They're young and they're still learning. It takes time. Nathan McKinnon. You look at Nathan McKinnon's points. Look at his impact in the league. He didn't really make an impact, like a full all-star impact in this league. I think it's like about his 5th season. You look at Robert Thomas. He's at his 7th. So he's kind of past there, but he was also an all-star last year. So, these ups and downs are going to be natural for the first, 4 or 5 years when you lean on a young player to be a core guy. So that's all only natural. So I think the patience is a big thing for the core guys. But I certainly think that Doug Armstrong is going to look to make this team better and more competitive, because at the end of the day, if you want to groom young kids and you want to make sure you're grooming your young hockey players, you got to be competitive. You got to be in tough games. You got to be in tight games. And come March, you better be fighting for a playoff spot, because that makes an impact on young guys over the big future.
So this time of year, Joe Vitale's his life is consumed by his family and hockey. Well, hockey's not going to be there, at least in terms of going to the rink for the next couple of weeks. So what are you going to do?
Yes, no hockey for a couple weeks. I'm taking it. Hey, this is game on. This is game on right now. The hockey's my off time. So work is my off time. So now the switch goes on to family time. Right now it's another school off snow day. We just found out. They used their last one. Might as well use them all, right? If you don't use them, you lose them. So we're going to get some snow today, and I got a couple little sickos in the house. My wife's not feeling great. So just taking over and doing the dad thing, which, of course, I absolutely love. We're making biscuits this morning, and we're raising all kinds of heck around the house. So it'll be a lot of fun, and certainly a lot of housework to do and things like that. But just kind of center myself, get away. As you know, Randy, it's, being a broadcaster and, for better or worse, what we're doing right now, you're entertaining people, right? And in order to entertain people, you need energy. You need enthusiasm. And, I move away from my personal life on most days, and I go to work and I'm already mostly depleted. So you got to find a way to, regain energy and regain enthusiasm, which isn't easy. And then all of a sudden at the end of the day, it leaves you more and more depleted. So you got to find time to step away, breathe, pray, whatever you got to do to kind of obviously slow your life down and slow your mind down. And I'm looking forward to doing that here a little bit.
I feel the lack of energy without kids right now.
It's no joke.
Hey, I want to get back on the Blues here for a moment, because something I thought about and have been thinking about for a few weeks now is the play of Pavel Buchnevich and the lack of seeing him in the scoring column. And that's kind of where I want to focus. Are you overly concerned by that, or would you just consider it a rough stretch for him?
No, I'm not concerned about it. I mean, I think he's a great hockey player. I think he sees the game. He's a very cerebral player. I think at times where you love the way Nathan Walker plays, right? Nathan Walker to me he's a dog. He's a dog. So whenever he's not scoring, you still notice him. Why? Because he's hitting, he's fighting, he's creating momentum, he's running the goalie, he's getting the crowd on their feet, right? He's doing everything in his control, and that's great for Nathan Walker. Now, Pavel Buchnevich, he's a little different, right? If he's scoring, he's getting his assists, he's moving the puck around in the power play, seeing the goals right there. I mean, you notice him, right? If he's not getting his points, now you're all of a sudden like, what's Pavel doing? Well, it's not that he's not carrying or he's falling off. He's just more of a spider, right? Walker's a dog. Pavel's a spider. Spiders kind of sit back, right? They observe, they think. And guess what? The game needs both, right? People always think, I get this all the time from youth hockey parents. How do I get my kid to be more aggressive, right? And we've all heard that. Like, I just need him to go and be more aggressive. I'm like, slow down. Like Pavel Buchnevich, you look at Robert Thomas, you look at Leon Draisaitl, right? Look at Evgeny Malkin. These players, they observe. They're thinkers. They sit back. They're observing information, right? So when they have these dry spells, it's not because of a lack of effort, even though maybe it looks like that at times. They're trying to process this thing. They're trying to bring it in. And once they kind of get it and figure it out, then all of a sudden it's going to just take off. And it will take off for him. The thing about Pavel is he's had a lot happen to him here in the last year. You know, this time last year, he was obviously, the rumors were swirled that he's going to get traded. He was one of the top members of the entire NHL, obviously, to be dealt. He dealt with that, right? Then he signs in the offseason, you know, with a new coach. Then they put him at center. Didn't feel good about center, so they moved him to wing. But, you know, it's been a lot going on, so there's been a lot of change for him. But not to mention, I think Pavel is at his best when he has a raw shooter on his line. And you think about it, I don't know if he's had a raw shooting goal scorer on his line since Vladimir Tarasenko. You know, that to me is what that line needs. With Thomas, Buchnevich, that is a great pair. But Thomas and Buchnevich, those are playmakers. They're 200-foot playmakers, right? In order to make that line go, they need a raw goal scorer, a guy that just wants to shoot the puck. You know, at times it can be Kyrou. You know, at times it can be Neighbors, but they really got to step outside their comfort zone to really accomplish that. So is that one of the moves that Doug Armstrong makes in the trade deadline in the offseason? I definitely think it's a need for this team, because you can say what you want about Vladimir Tarasenko. I know he wanted to be traded and there were some ups and downs at the end of his career. But at the end of the day, he was a player that could still change the game with one shot, and he just needed some playmakers around him. So to me, that's what's going to make that top line go.
Joey V, you always make me think. I never considered the concept before you of baby pigeons, for example. I never considered the concept of a spider sitting back and thinking and processing. Do they really?
They do. I mean, I'm not a spider, but no. You look at the way they.
I know you
look at the way they operate.
He does have 8 legs.
Yeah, look at the way. Yeah, they have 8 legs. They're operating. Obviously, if they want to go, they could. They got 8 legs, and they can fly. They can put their web up like you see in Charlotte's Web, and she just kind of sails off in the wind. They could. I mean, you see Spider-Man. They can do anything. But what do? They kind of sit back for the most part. They observe, and what do? They wait for the flies and the fleas and the moss to get trapped in their web, and then they hammer them.
Pretty smart. Okay, one last thing, Joey, because you went to school in Boston, you played in Pittsburgh. Give St. Louisans one pro tip for driving in the snow.
Don't do it.
Okay,
don't do it. Get your
Stay at
doggone groceries early and stay home and enjoy it and slow your life down. If you have to, right? If you have to, I guess just take it slow. Take it slow. Like my dad always told me, you know, it's not about you necessarily. It's about the other guy, you know, and I tell my kids this, I tell my wife this, and she's rolling her eyes. When you come to a stop sign, right? You come to a stop sign, you make your stop. Great. Good job. You did your job. But your job ain't over, right? You got to worry about the other guy, right? So it's like you may stop, but before you go, you better make sure they stop, you know, and this is all joking aside, you know, if I could give any lesson, if it saves one life, my dad, he was adamant at a young age, whenever we're crosswalking, you know, when that light went from the red hand of stop to the white guy walking, he would always say, you still have to do what? You have to look. Right. You have to look, because that is an electronic signal saying it is your time to go. It is your turn to go. Does not mean it's safe to go. It has nothing to do with safety, right? So when you're walking out there, folks, for what it's worth, Joey V, the radio guy, told you, when it's your time to walk, remember, it's your time to walk. It doesn't mean it's safe to walk. You still have to look both ways. And today, my goodness, you come to a stop sign, come to a stoplight. If it's your turn to go, certainly it's your turn to go. But you got to look around and you got to be careful out there.
Joe Vitale, love you. Thanks so much for the time. We'll do it again next week, and enjoy this little time off from hockey that you can apply to your family.
Can't wait, guys. You guys, love you guys too, and we're looking forward to next week.
All right, thank you, sir. See you. Joe Vitale with us on The Fight, and Live with Joe Vitale is sponsored by Adonis Electric Recycling. We will talk to Joe every Wednesday here on The Fight. Coming up, we need your help to make a parlay. We're each going to make one, and you can text in to help us out. We've got one already, as a matter of fact. All you have to do is give us a single bet on DraftKings for a game tonight. Text into 314-624-0414. Build a parlay next on The Fight. All right, time for a little risky business. Time to build a parlay. And we have a bet from a viewer. Andrew has one. I have one. As a matter of fact, I'm going to start with the Four Nations Tournament. Canada and Sweden playing tonight on TNT, 7 o'clock. The Blues' Colton Parayko, Andrew, is plus 1,200 to score a goal. So let's go down to Colton Parayko right at the bottom of the list. Got the hockey glove.
Power of the glove.
Boom. How about that? Plus 1,200. Parayko's going to score, and I'm going to make us some big money. Now it's up to you and up to Tim.
Those gloves remind me of those Hulk hands growing up. Just those big Hulk hands that you slide on because of the rest of the look not matching your hockey vibes there, Randy. So we got plus 1,200 for Colton Parayko. I'm going to stay in the home state once again. I am, well, I guess with Colton Parayko, that is, with Randy's decision. That game's obviously not in Missouri. I'm going to Springfield, Missouri, Randy, and I am playing it safe tonight. I'm taking minus 166 Mo State at home over Evansville. These are two very good teams. They match up well. The spread scares me a little bit. As you can see, Evansville is favored to win by that key number. Life's too short to bet the under, so I'm going with the money line.
All right, so we've got that one. And Tim in Afton has texted in. We appreciate your bet, sir, and here's what we have.
Tim's bet, we scroll to Mizzou. Again, staying in the home state, we're headed to Columbia this time. Mizzou lost a game at home. They finally found a way to put a crooked number in the loss column, but they're going to bounce back. Tim believes in them. He liked minus 8.5. That's what he texted in. The line has already shifted to minus 9.5. Of course, you can go into that play and adjust it to be 8.5, but for sake of the example, let's just keep it at the main spread number, which is to win by 10 points. Mizzou by 10 tonight, Randy, which we come over here. Colton Parayko, Mo State, and Mizzou. Look at that payout tonight, huh?
Oh, my.
This is one that you get excited about because when you put 100 on it, oh, Randy, this is like $3-4 grand. Yeah, it's $4 grand.
$4 grand. So there you go. So that's our parlay for tonight. How did we do yesterday? Well, not great. Only our viewer bet the Wildcats and Volunteers scoring under 150, and that won, and they only scored a combined 139. I did not do well with my 56.5 under by your
it was a long shot, but it looked good at halftime.
Oh,
it absolutely looked good at half.
I had a chance, yeah.
And then, of course, Arizona, they just couldn't make a three and turn the ball over too many times to have a chance against K-State. But Dave, great work. The viewer, 1-0.
Yep, and Tim, good luck tonight. That's today's Build a Parlay, and don't forget, we need you to build a parlay. Already have an idea for tomorrow's bet? Text us or email us. We'd love to hear from you and have you be part of the show here on The Fight. Coming up, Take It or Leave It, plus birthdays and anniversaries right here on Matrix Midwest. Time for Tioli and Andrew, the Super Bowl halftime performer who held up flags in protest during the show, told NBC News that he wanted to use his moment to, quote, highlight the human suffering. Take it or leave it. That demonstration should have been at a Browns game if he wanted to highlight human suffering.
You are terrible, but I love it. Take it. I am taking that. I would much rather see it at a Browns game, but of course he was going for eyeballs in this case, and so the Super Bowl made a lot of sense. But
Cleveland Browns Stadium, you are a factory of sadness.
At least for the last, 20, 25 years? How far can you go back with the Cleveland Browns?
Oh, to the drive and to the fumble. And, Baker Mayfield did win a playoff game for him, though. And then they got rid of Baker Mayfield, who's still playing great for somebody else.
Now he's having success, right? Yep. And going to playoffs for Tampa Bay. Take it. I'm assuming you as well.
I'll take that.
Yeah, he's taking it. There you go. Let's get rid of this one. Mine for you also happened at the Super Bowl. Pat Mahomes Sr. and John Rocker nearly threw hands, Randy, outside the Super Bowl over the weekend. Take it or leave it. If Mahomes Sr. would have fought John Rocker, it would have been a bigger beating than his son took that day.
Unfortunately for Patrick Mahomes Sr., I'm going to take it. One of the problems that Pat Mahomes Sr. has, he pitched for the Cubs. And when you pitch for the Cubs, that means you look down and you see that thing on your chest and you got a problem. So, yeah, he would have lost.
Well, and John Rocker looks huge.
Yeah,
in that video, he is.
And I think he's still angry. I think he's still a kind of a bitter guy. So there you have it. That is Tioli. And you're taking that one too?
I have to. Yeah,
Rocker,
it just seems right.
Rocker would have rocked him. All right, let's move on now to birthdays and anniversaries. And we got some birthdays today. Cardinal outfielder Victor Scott II turns 24. Happy birthday, Victor, and I hope you make the Major League team, and I hope you turn into a base-stealing star with the Cardinals.
No doubt.
Also, St. Louis and MLB player and broadcaster Joe Garagiola was born on the Hill on this date in 1926. He was one of the all-time greats and just a really versatile guy. There's Joey G with Steve Savard. Joe Garagiola, who broadcast, by the way, the Cardinals' 1982 World Series, the championship. He grew up right across the street from Yogi Berra, one of the great notable St. Louisans, born on this date in 1926. On this date in 1937, the St. Louis Gunners had been disbanded, and the NFL awarded a new team to Cleveland. The Cleveland Rams became the 10th pro pigskin team. There you have it. The Cleveland was granted that franchise. About 10 years later, they moved to Los Angeles to become the Rams, and obviously wound up here and back in LA. But when Stan Kroenke and Kevin Demoff said, yeah, we're bringing the Rams home. No, home is Cleveland.
I was going to ask, do you think there's protesters at those games in 1937?
There probably should have been. So, and they started, ironically, as the St. Louis Gunners. So it was almost full circle until the Grinch took the team away. We mentioned Bonnie Blair.
He didn't return them, though. Like the Grinch at least returned the gifts.
The Grinch turned nice. Champagne's Bonnie Blair skates the female world record 500 meters in 38.69 seconds on this date in 1995 at the Winter Olympics, and what a career she had. We talked about her yesterday, setting records. The women's world record for the 500 meters set on this date in 1995.
What it would be like representing your country, like we talked about in the Four Nations tournament, just putting on the stars and stripes.
Yeah. Paul in St. Louis, by the way, sends us an email, and you can email us at thefight@matrixmidwest.com. He said, have you heard anything lately about the possibility of St. Louis getting an NFL franchise someday in the coming years? I kind of keep my ear to the ground for this kind of stuff, and I haven't heard anything. I mean, the Cardinals were only gone for 7 years, and almost immediately there was a bid to try to get another team. But in talking to leaders in the community, both political and corporate, I just don't see the appetite. And I'll tell you this, the NFL is not going to expand, and the NFL is not going to move a team to St. Louis because our city right now, unfortunately, our region is just not set up to attract an NFL team, get a stadium built, and have all of those things happen. We just, at this stage of our existence in St. Louis, we aren't there.
It comes down to that stadium building. For me, I mean, all these NFL teams want to be in the newest model, right? You want the newest, flashiest model, and the Rams just aren't the Rams. The NFL just isn't willing to do that. In terms of relocation, I mean, it's all rumors most of the time, right? There was rumors the Chargers would move when the Rams moved back. It will stay a rumor. It feels forever.
Yeah, I would be surprised. I'm 62. I would be surprised in my lifetime if we would have another NFL team here in St. Louis. It's sad, but, and you know what, we can talk about this sometime on another show. We really blew our opportunities. Our best opportunities were to keep the Cardinals in 1987 or to nail down that expansion team in 1993. Didn't do either, and we are where we are right now.
Have a Super Bowl, though.
Yeah, there's fun stuff to watch today right here on Matrix Midwest this afternoon at 5. You've got the Coachella Valley Invitational. St. Louis City SC taking on New York City FC. We've got Valley basketball tonight, and don't forget, you've got the Four Nations tournament as well. For Andrew, I'm Randy, and our director, Tyler Klaus. See you tomorrow.